Picture this. A group of students, tired, frustrated, and fed up with being ignored, decide to raise their voices in protest. They take to the streets, they march on campus, they demand answers. And instead of being heard, they're slapped with criminal charges.
Vice-Chancellor, how long have you been the Vice-Chancellor at your institution? Please switch on your...
Thank you very much for your question, Honourable Member. I started in 2023, January.
Okay, when were the charges that have been laid against students that are appearing in court tomorrow, when were they laid?
This is from last year, from what I gather.
So you were already
22.
Vice-Chancellor at the time?
Yes, yes.
Okay, why are the students charged?
It was part of a protest incident where the students instigated basically some violent participation, not at a level where really it was destructive, but it was getting to a point where there needed to be some crowd control, and so they were taken away.
Okay, so it wasn't to the level of violent to criminality, but the problem was that crowd control was an issue. Did I hear you properly?
That was part of it.
Okay,
but the
so-
main thing was controlling the crowds.
Okay, who laid the charges?
The institution had a court interdict.
So the institution had a court interdict against students for having a demonstration.
Honourable Member, when you put it, it's just it wasn't just a demonstration. It was a protest, and as you know,
Excuse
nowadays
my English,
it's
there's
usually
synonyms in my political head, excuse.
no, don't.
Yeah.
It's the way the escalation tends to happen, where then when you want to avoid that, it gets to a point where there's damage of property or some safety issues for other students and staff members and other members of the community. That's why then crowd control is usually necessary.
Okay, excuse my ignorance. I'm gonna really ask dumb questions because I wasn't there. So you had an interdict in the middle of the protest or before the protest?
That would be in the middle of the protest.
Okay, so the reason why I asked you the first question I asked you around the nature of the protest was I was trying to understand at what point was there justification for an interdict that then resulted in the arresting of students. So I need you to make it sense to myself and everybody else that's listening who's probably confused. So if in your own description, if the demonstrations by students, the protests, were not violent in their nature in your own explanation, but the core issue was crowd control, what then was management's justification for an interdict, for the application of an interdict? Was it you were foreseeing that there might be a problem, that things can get out of hand, or what happened?
Okay. It was foreseeing that things were going to get out of hand, especially when there was throwing of objects around.
Okay. So the students who are now appearing in court, did they destroy or destruct any property on campus?
Well, not that I know of, where it's clear that it's them that destroyed it, but the safety considerations were paramount in that instance.
Okay. So as the Vice-Chancellor of the institution, in your own understanding and assessment, why are the students appearing in court?
Honourable Member, it has to do with the period when the students were protesting. There were a number of national protests that were happening around NSFAS and accommodation issues.
Now, 40 minutes
Yes.
sounds like it's a lot. It's not. So
Okay.
I need you to be direct. You've already given context. I don't need you to give me a history lesson of South Africa. Specifically to your institution with the students who are currently going to court tomorrow. What's the issue there? What, in your assessment, if you're asked now as the Vice-Chancellor, the executive head of the institution, students are going to court, they were arrested because of your interdict, why?
Well, because they stopped basically progress of the academic agenda.
Okay.
By the protests that could have been dealt with by other means in terms of engagement.
I hear you. President, UFS. Yourself, you are President UFS. No, not UFS, Bloemfontein. I'm so sorry, President Bloemfontein. Is the narration of the Vice-Chancellor true to your recollection of the arrests?
Leadership, there's actually two interdicts.
Okay.
There's one from last year where the whole SRC was interdicted. And then the next day there was a protest. That's where 22 students were arrested. And then there's another court interdict now where there's, I can say 6 or 7 respondents, because the last one says any other person that can continue. So for the one where we are appearing in court tomorrow, no one has been arrested. There was a court interdict that was put in place, and then the protest did not continue. And then, yeah, we have a court case tomorrow. So for the one that we are appearing tomorrow, there was no one that was arrested. There was a court interdict that was there, and then the strike did not continue.
So why are you going to court tomorrow?
Leadership, I don't know. I'm the first respondent, maybe because I'm president, but so what happened is I woke up from my rest, right? And then I went to consult the students in terms of what are the grievances and what has caused them to do the protest and barricade gates. Then they indicated that they had sent communication to the dean of students and escalated to everyone regarding their issue, but they feel like they're not being heard, so hence the unrest. So I then did a video on my TikTok to say that there's currently an unrest at the Central University of Technology because services are not being provided. So those are the attachments of my TikTok that they have put on the court interdict. So I guess maybe because of that video, that's why I'm going to court tomorrow. But the interdict further indicates that I was barricading gates and all of that, which is really not true because I had come out of the room after everything had happened. So I think there's just an confusion because there's 2 court interdicts. The first one was there, the protest continued, and then 22.
Let's deal with the first one of 22.
Yes.
What is the status there?
The students are currently going to court, and they've been going to court from last year around April. I can just get the order so that I can get the dates right. But from last year, first semester, they've been going to court, and the last appearance was now, not the last, but the before now, it was on the 9th of April, and still the court case is just continuing without any proper way forward.
Okay, Vice-Chancellor, what is your understand or your definition of destruction of classes?
Disruption of classes, honorable member, is when, we've got a calendar year and a program for the calendar for attendance in classes and so on. So, and there's an understanding that students should attend classes, and the university academic agenda should carry on with minimal interruptions. If at all, maybe it's a medical issue and so on, but not when there is unplanned protest on issues that usually, under normal circumstances, actually are already being addressed in other fora.
Okay, so in your understanding, when the students protested, they went into class and they stopped teaching and learning?
Well, that tends to happen as part of it, where they would get students out of class.
Okay, I'm asking about specifically this. I agree the interdict specifically was that there shouldn't be a disruption of academic activity. Is my understanding correct?
Public order, control, disruption of classes.
Okay, so the 6 people that are going to court tomorrow, they themselves went into classes and they told people to not be taught. And they themselves closed gates and they told people not to come to school, and what did they do?
Honorable member, as mentioned, so the 6 people, that's an incident from this year,
Yeah.
where there had been barricading of gates and there were classes that were disrupted, basically did not continue because people didn't have access to the campus. That's one of the pictures that was shown by the president, where I went and talked to students about that, and we spent hours in terms of short-term and immediate term and long-term kind of, achievements that needed to be done to make sure that we carry on with the academic agenda. And a few days later, when actually delivery of some of the services that were expected by a certain date did not happen, so students were not happy about that and went back to barricade gates so that there would be no entrance to campus. And that was something that was seen as really, where is this coming from? We are engaging, there are reasons why the delivery didn't happen at the time it happened. So again, out of concern for the continued kind of disruption of continuous university, continuity of university services and academic agenda, so the court interdict then was applied.
Who has the authority to drop charges in the institution?
Well, the university would have to look at in engagement.
Answer the
with
question, Visi. Who has the authority to drop charges in the institution?
Well, it depends on the veracity of those. If they need to be taken to council for their
Okay,
approval,
the case we're
it's-
talking
but
about
it would
now.
come through the Vice-Chancellor.
So you yourself have the power to consult counsel to drop charges?
What, depending on the veracity of the work,
MB,
yes, it would be the
Vice-Chancellor, I don't want us to go kena hanong ka bong ene ko hlompha jwalo ka motswadi wa ka hoba ke monyane ho wena. But I don't want us to have a general conversation when we're having a case-specific conversation. So in this case that we're currently referring to, are you saying you have the power to drop charges?
When it's put as power, yes, it would have
Okay,
to be the
I'm
Vice-Chancellor
asking you
that
now
takes it up.
then, if you yourself have the power?
Consultation.
Yes. So if you have the power to initiate a conversation around the dropping of charges, I'm asking, are you making a commitment to Parliament now here that this is something that you are interested in doing, or that is not something that you don't want to do?
It's something that is not a straightforward black and white, honorable member. It's something that you need to look at what, the context, where we are. And of course, we wouldn't want our students' academic records to be tarnished by, such experiences. So we would want to look at it with that understanding in mind.
Vice-Chancellor, the first question I asked you in this engagement was how long you have been Vice-Chancellor. So, and you answered honestly. So the response you are giving now around it depends on having an understanding of the challenges of the case and whatnot. That's something that has happened throughout your term. So you have a full understanding of the case. You don't need to go consult anything about what is happening. All I'm trying to get from you here is, because students are crying to say they have a threat of potential criminality attached to their records for life. And in my engagement with you now, you said that there was no actual destruction to property and there was no violence. The issue you're referring to was that there was crowd management problem and that too there were barricading of gates. Those are the two cases that are a problem, right? But in your own words, you also said, Vice-Chancellor, that there was no violence in itself, that the demonstrations or the protest were not escalated to a point of violence altogether. So I'm putting this question to you on the basis of your own responses to say, given everything you've just said right now, I'm asking, are you of the opinion as the executive head of the institution that the charges that students are currently facing should still continue, or are you moved to consider the possibility of dropping the charges? Yes or no?
Well, yes, in terms of making sure that this doesn't happen again, but it wouldn't just end there. It would have to come with an educational and a kind of advocacy around, the consequences of these actions.
When you say advocacy, do you mean somebody must come and advocate to say, we, the students, via the SRC, I assume, commit that we won't disrupt academic proceedings, and if that's a commitment that is made, then we can drop charges?
Well, the commitment as much as we understand where most of the time the protests come from, but really the commitment towards responsible leadership
Okay.
and student agency.
Responsible leadership, I'm asking this as a politician now, not just as a leader. What are the rules in your understanding that permit public demonstration and protest as per the South African Constitution says is the case? Under which circumstances can in your institution there be a protest?
Well, the freedom to protest, that's in the Constitution, but as we know, Honourable Member, it comes with responsibility as well. So
I'm asking very simple questions. Answer the question, ma'am. Under which circumstances?
And sorry, what was the question then?
My
Under which-
question was very clear. Under which circumstances do you as the Vice-Chancellor think it is okay to demonstrate at CUT?
Well, at all times, it's part of the freedom that comes with, the right to be able to protest.
Okay.
But within acceptable and agreed upon processes.
Okay.
And most of the time, things happen outside of those agreed processes, so
Okay.
we have to act as they
So you
happen.
first want a notice to say we are going to protest. And in this case, of the current case, you didn't get a notice that people are going to protest. You woke up and the protest was just live.
Yeah, that's the trend.
No,
That we are
I'm
addressing
asking
now.
about this specific case, not the
Yes.
trend, the culture, the specific case on the table.
That's how
Chairperson,
it
the
is.
reason why I'm asking the questions I'm asking is because ntho e nqakang ke hore, if you are pro a culture of protesting, and in your own admission, the protests that took place on campus were not violent altogether, I am unable to understand why you are unable to then make the same admission that the interdict that you made, which has now adverse consequences of arrests of students and them having to go to court. I mean, having to appear to court to me is the same as an arrest altogether. That to me means hore there isn't really a case for you to be taking these people to court. That is my own observation. But I'm going to leave it there because your answer to me, an inability to be clear on a yes, is a no. So I am hearing you right now in my question of whether you are willing to drop the charges as a no. And I'll take it as that and leave it there. The second question, Chairperson.
Now here's the kicker. When everyone's hoping the Vice-Chancellor will step in, show leadership, and maybe, just maybe, calm things down by getting those charges dropped, what does she do? Absolutely nothing. Nope. Nada. Zero. In fact, she refuses. Plain and simple. And that's where our story begins. We're diving into the Central University of Technology's latest drama, a saga filled with student activism, alleged mismanagement, administrative cold shoulders, and a VC who's doubling down like she's at a poker table in Vegas. And trust me, this story is wilder than any lecture hall conspiracy theory you've heard during exam week. Now, let's set the stage properly. Over the past few months, CUT has become the hotspot for some serious student unrest. Think burning tires, mass gatherings, megaphones, chants, the whole 9 yards. Why? Well, the list of grievances could stretch from Bloemfontein to Cape Town. Students are complaining about unaffordable accommodation, missing NSFAS allowances, broken infrastructure, and long-standing promises from the university that have turned into nothing more than vaporware. But when protests started getting attention, and let's be honest, CUT wasn't looking too good in the headlines, the university did what many institutions do when under fire. They called in the cavalry. Suddenly, police were on campus. Students were being arrested, rubber bullets were flying, and the administration, they were watching it all from their offices with the blinds slightly closed. Now, here's where it gets spicy. After the dust had settled a bit, the community expected the Vice-Chancellor to step forward. Students, parents, civil rights groups, everybody thought the VC would issue a statement calling for calm and perhaps, just maybe, ask the authorities to consider dropping the charges. After all, these were students, not hardened criminals. They weren't out there robbing banks. They were demanding better living conditions. But the Vice-Chancellor didn't do that. Instead, she doubled down. Said that the rule of law must take its course. that there would be no special treatment, that the students had broken the law and now they must face the consequences. And that, my friends, is when things really hit the fan. Let's pause here and ask, what kind of message does that send? Sure, maintaining law and order is important. No one's saying it's okay to riot. But this wasn't an organized crime ring. This was a protest. It's almost like using a sledgehammer to swat a fly. And the backlash, oh, it came hard and fast. Social media lit up like a Christmas tree. Hashtags started trending. Drop the charges, cut justice, students not criminals, you name it. Alumni began speaking out. Civil society organizations issued statements condemning the university's stance. And suddenly, the spotlight was right on the VC, shining brighter than the cut library lights during exam week. But still, the woman didn't budge. Sources close to the administration claim the VC is trying to make an example. That she believes leniency would encourage more protests. That order must be restored, and discipline maintained. Basically, she's trying to pull the old school headmaster routine, but in a university setting, where students are paying to be there. Not exactly a winning strategy. And let's not forget the optics here. You've got students, many of them from disadvantaged backgrounds, already dealing with a mountain of challenges, financial stress, academic pressure, social expectations, and instead of being supported, they're now criminalized. It's like kicking someone when they're already down. Now, let's not pretend student protests are always peaceful. We know some protests turn chaotic. We've all seen videos of things getting out of hand. But there's a big difference between holding someone accountable for a specific violent act and throwing the entire protesting student body under the legal bus. It's lazy, it's reactionary, and it completely misses the point. So, what's next? Well, some student leaders have vowed to keep pushing. They want those charges dropped. They're planning to take their case to the Human Rights Commission. Others are calling for national student bodies to intervene. And there's even talk of targeting university donors and sponsors, pressuring them to withhold funding until the administration softens its stance. Meanwhile, the VC seems to be digging in her heels. Her supporters argue that she's taking a principled stand, that rules are rules. But critics, oh, they're having a field day. Some are calling her a dictator in a gown. Others say she's completely out of touch with the realities students face. One even said she's treating the university like a private kingdom where her word is law. Harsh, maybe, but not entirely unjustified. Now here's where it gets even more complex. There are whispers that the VC's refusal to intervene is politically motivated. That she doesn't want to be seen as soft by government funders or educational bodies. That she's more interested in her future career prospects than the current well-being of her students. We can't confirm that, of course, but let's just say it wouldn't be the first time politics played puppet master behind the scenes. So what should have been done instead? Well, a more balanced response for starters. A vice-chancellor who steps up and says, "Look, we hear you. Let's sit down, talk, and fix this together." Maybe open a mediation process. Work with student leaders. Bring in independent observers. Create a roadmap. Leadership. Instead, what we got was the administrative equivalent of a shrug and a locked door. And make no mistake, this story isn't just about cut. It's about the broader crisis in South African higher education. The tension between university management and student bodies has been simmering for years. Every year, we see new protests. Same problems, same demands, same lack of action. It's like we're caught in some never-ending loop, just with different players and different campus names. At some point, we have to ask, when did universities stop being places of learning and growth and start turning into mini-police states? Universities are supposed to be the heart of free thought, of debate, of progress. When students protest, it's not because they're bored. It's because they've been ignored. And when management responds with batons and charges instead of conversation and compromise, it says more about them than it does about the students. Let's get real for a second. You know what's really damaging to a university's image? It's not a protest. It's the fact that students felt the need to protest in the first place. That should be the real embarrassment. Not the headlines, not the chants, but the silence that came before all of it. And as this drama continues to unfold, the pressure is only going to build. Students are not backing down. Community leaders are starting to ask tough questions. And that Vice-Chancellor, she's going to have to make a decision sooner or later. Because if this fire doesn't get put out with dialogue, it's going to rage out of control. So to the VC, if you're listening, this is your moment. Your legacy. You can be the person who cracked down and sent your students into the courtroom, or you can be the one who turned this ship around, listened, and did the right thing. And to the students, stay strong, stay smart, and stay united. You've got more people watching and supporting you than you think.